how the biggest crime syndicate started. The mob. The story begins in the 1860s in Sicily, a sun-baked island the Italian government technically owned but couldn't actually control. No real courts, no real cops, just land, poverty, and lemons. The Mafia didn't start with drugs or guns or even revenge. It started with lemons. The British Navy needed citrus to cure scurvy, and Sicily was the only place producing enough. It was a gold rush in the middle of nowhere, but with no police to protect the valuable groves, desperate farmers did the only logical thing. They hired local tough guys to stand around looking menacing. These protectors quickly had a revelation. They had all the power. The farmers needed them more than they needed the farmers. So they formalized it. They formed a secret brotherhood called Cosa Nostra, our thing. Membership had one unbreakable rule: omerta, absolute silence. You don't talk to the police, ever. If you did, you didn't get a warning. You got a funeral. This wasn't just a gang, it was a shadow government. And like any good government, it was built on two things: protection and fear. In the early 1900s, Sicily was still broke, so millions of Italians packed their bags and fled poverty for America. The mafiosi quietly packed theirs too, and hid among them. They landed in the slums of New York and started small, very small. They sent black hand letters to Italian shopkeepers. Put $500 in this envelope or your bakery burns down. It was brutal, but it was petty cash. The American police largely ignored them because as far as the NYPD was concerned, it was just immigrants killing immigrants. They were street thugs until the US government accidentally handed them a rocket ship, 1920. The US government bans alcohol. Overnight, a bottle of whiskey transforms from a casual drink into a strictly illegal commodity worth its weight in gold. The street thugs saw the opening immediately. They bought trucks, bribed cops, built underground networks, and started smuggling booze by the ocean load. Al Capone in Chicago became a full-blown celebrity. He wasn't just a thug anymore, he was the king of Chicago, pulling in $100 million a year. By 1930, there was too much money and too many bosses. The Mafia in New York fractured into two warring factions led by old-school Mustache Pete's, Joe, the boss, Masseria, and Salvatore Maranzano. These men were dinosaurs in pinstripe suits. They refused to work with non-Italians, clung to ancient codes. They kicked off the Castellamarese War, turning NYC into a daily shooting gallery. Bodies were dropping, money was bleeding, and nobody was winning. Enter Charles Lucky Luciano, a sharp young lieutenant who looked at the chaos and saw one thing: wasted profit. He was close friends with Jewish gangsters like Meyer Lansky. He didn't care about tradition or bloodlines. He cared about efficiency. Luciano's solution to the war was elegant: kill everyone running it. First, he invited his own boss, Masseria, to lunch. Midway through the meal, Luciano excused himself to use the bathroom. 4 hitmen walked in and turned Masseria into a headline. Luciano then pledged loyalty to the winner, Maranzano, who promptly declared himself capo di tutti capi, boss of all bosses. But Luciano understood something Maranzano didn't. A man who calls himself king is just painting a target on his own back. 6 months later, men dressed as IRS agents walked calmly into Maranzano's office and stabbed him to death. With both kings dead, everyone assumed Luciano would take the throne. Instead, he did something no one saw coming. He said, "No more kings." He created the Commission, effectively a corporate board of directors for organized crime. The heads of New York's 5 families, Genovese, Gambino, Lucchese, Colombo, Bonanno, would sit at a table and vote on disputes. Murder required approval. Everything that started in those Sicilian lemon groves 60 years earlier. A system built to replace a government that wasn't doing its job. And for the next 50 years, they ran America from the shadows. The Cartel. In the 1970s, Mexico's underworld was a war zone in the making. Every dirt road town had its own boss running marijuana and opium north across the border, and none of them talked to each other. Trucks got ambushed. Loads got stolen at gunpoint. Rivals got shot in the street over a few kilos of weed. These small-time smugglers weren't building an empire. They were bleeding each other dry, and the cops picked off the weak ones one by one. Then one man looked at the chaos and saw something nobody else did. His name was Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo. He'd spent years inside the system. He knew exactly how to bend it. Gallardo's idea was simple and ruthless. Peace pays better than war. He drove from town to town, sitting down face to face with men who'd spent years trying to kill each other. His pitch: stop shooting each other, band together, and instead of bribing one sheriff at a time, we bribe the whole government. It worked. In 1980, the warring bosses shook hands and formed the Guadalajara Cartel. The first time, Mexico's underworld operated like a single corporation instead of 100 feuding gangs. They carved the border into plazas, territories with a price tag. Move product through Tijuana, you pay the Tijuana boss. Move it through Juarez, you pay the Juarez boss. Everyone got paid. For a while, it looked like Gallardo had built peace out of chaos. Then the market flipped upside down. In the early 80s, the US slammed the door on the Caribbean smuggling routes Colombia's cocaine cowboys, men like Pablo Escobar, had relied on for years. Suddenly, the Colombians had mountains of cocaine and no way to move it. Gallardo saw the opening and made his move. He got the Colombians on the phone with an offer they couldn't refuse. I'll run your product through Mexico into California. Forget cash. Pay me in product. 50%. Overnight, weed smugglers became cocaine kingpins. Billions of dollars started flowing through Mexico instead of the Caribbean. The Guadalajara cartel didn't just get rich, they got untouchable. They bought islands, they bought politicians, they bought armies. But the empire had one fatal blind spot. In 1985, a DEA agent named Kiki Camarena got too close. He was uncovering exactly how deep the cartel's corruption ran, all the way to the top of the Mexican government. To stop him, the cartel had him kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. They assumed Washington would send a strongly worded letter and move on. They were catastrophically wrong. The U.S. launched Operation Leyenda, the largest homicide investigation in DEA history. With federal agents closing in, Gallardo knew the Federation's days were numbered. So he called one last meeting, and instead of trying to save the empire, he split it apart, handing out territories to his most trusted lieutenants so the business could survive without him. The Arellano Felix brothers took Tijuana. Amado Carrillo Fuentes took Juarez. A young enforcer named Joaquin El Chapo Guzman took Sinaloa. In 1989, Gallardo was arrested, but the peace he'd built didn't survive him. Without a godfather to enforce the rules, the lieutenants turned on each other. The plazas that once meant order became battlegrounds. A single decision, made to save the business, is the reason Mexico is still fighting cartel wars today. The Yakuza. Japan, 1600s. The wars are over. The shogun has unified the country. Great for farmers, terrible for warriors. Thousands of samurai are suddenly unemployed. They're ronin, masterless samurai. Swords, training, no one to pay them. They wander the countryside, bullying villagers for fun, so the towns fight back. Meet the machi yako, servants of the town, shopkeepers, laborers, gamblers, not warriors, but tough. Robin Hood, but with tattoos. Over time, this group splits into two. The Takaya Travel Festival to festival selling goods. Considered untouchables, they form tight-knit families for protection and slowly build real businesses. The Bakuto are the outlaws. Gambling is illegal, so they operate in the shadows of temples. They create the strict code Yubitsume, cutting a finger to pay off a debt, full-body tattoos to prove you can take pain, total loyalty to the Oyabun, the father. Even the name comes from them. The worst hand in a card game, 893. In Japanese, Yakuza. Good for nothing. A badge, not an insult. Fast forward to the late 1800s. Japan is modernizing fast. The samurai are gone, but the Yakuza are thriving. The government needs muscle for new ports and factories. They call the Yakuza. Soon they're running construction, the docks, even elections. No more hiding in the shadows. Office buildings, business cards, respected and feared in plain sight. Japan lies in ruins after World War II. The police force is gone. The streets are chaos. A black market explodes. The Yakuza seize the open markets, provide order where the police can't, and extract a brutal tax for it. This creates a new breed, the Gurentai. Unlike the old gamblers with their code of honor, these are violent street thugs, until Kazuo Taoka, the godfather of godfathers, boss of the Yamaguchi Gumi, realizes fighting is bad for business. Instead of killing off rivals, he absorbs them. Join the Yamaguchi Gumi, fly our crest, get our protection. A local dock gang in Kobe becomes a national syndicate. When Taoka dies, his funeral airs on national television. The Yakuza Paradox, a criminal organization now running billion-dollar empires from glass towers.